Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to SaaS Monster. Okay, today I'm going to be introducing you to some of the greatest C-levels and founders of SaaS companies in the world. And it's going to be an incredible two days. And before that, I'm going to actually kick off by talking about 4 amazing visions by SaaS founders that I've interviewed over the last 2 years in my 14 Minutes of SaaS podcast. Okay, so we're going to kick off now with 14 Minutes of SaaS, okay?
Welcome to 14 Minutes of SaaS, the show where you can listen to the stories and opinions of founders of the world's most remarkable SaaS scale-ups.
So I interview some of the biggest SaaS founders, and I use things like G2 and Glassdoor to select out founders of companies that have a propensity to make customers and employees massively successful. So it's a very, very select group that I interview. I'm going to look at 4 big visions, from unlocking the power of voice to democratizing the mobile web to bringing quantum computing to the masses via SaaS. Okay. So, unlocking the power of voice, that's a really huge thing. Most of us lose most of the data from telephone conversations, even though we've been looking at this for years. Most of the telephone conversations in your business don't route smartly into your SaaS business apps. Well, here's somebody obsessed with that. Meet Jonathan Angulev. He's the COO and co-founder of AirCall. And that's a cloud-based phone system. And his vision is to unlock the power of voice. He's obsessed with integrating all of the telephone conversations, the business ones, into the entire SaaS application stack. Okay, have a listen.
We believe in the fact that with a regular phone system, the phone conversation is being lost very easily. So, integrate into all the business tools. Today, what happens in companies is that all business tools are going into the SaaS. So now we have the opportunity to integrate with all those single tools. So if every single person that uses the phone system will get some value of it. We are building over 100 integrations just in 2019.
So telephone calls are valuable data, and they're obsessed with that, and they believe that statement. And that's why it's a very valuable company after a very short amount of time. And the key line in that was that they're building over 100 integrations on a beautifully architected API in 1 year, this year. I know of no other company in the world that's doing that. It's a massive, massive vision.
So the real strategy is that we want to go to a company and say, hey, what are the business tools you're using? All right, we integrate with all of them. So your phone system will integrate with all of them. Isn't that amazing? And tomorrow, you want to add a new software, you will be able to integrate, because we are building AirCall like an API that will be able to integrate to anything. So we are really the phone brick into the business, basically.
So this is all about the rise of the SaaS API. If you think of another Paris-founded company, Algolia, they're the enterprise search brick into the SaaS stack. These guys, also founded in Paris, are the phone brick, Lego brick, into the SaaS stack. And that's really where a lot of the business is going. They integrated the Salesforce, Zendesk, HubSpot, Intercom, you name it. And because of that, after being founded in 2014, they're already doing dozens of millions in revenue. That's a direct quote. That was all he gave me. And they've raised over 41 million in investment to unlock the power of voice, to integrate your phone calls into those SaaS systems. Okay, customer data infrastructure. The next vision is actually very similar to AirCalls, even though it's a different focus. And what they did, express it in a different way. What they want to do is integrate all of your data in one go and then port it to everything. Port it to all your SaaS applications, your entire SaaS stack. So meet Peter Reinhardt, co-founder and CEO of Segment. Now, he tried to kill the idea that was to become Segment. Because he didn't agree that there was a business in it. Basically, they'd written 500 lines of code to help them port some data into a few apps, and another co-founder thought it'd be a great business. He thought it was ridiculous, open source, up there, everybody had it. So what he did was he pretended Segment was built, and he published it in Hacker News and said, sign up if you're interested. He waited for silence, and half the world wanted it yesterday. A unicorn was born, a real product market fit moment. Okay.
So marketing technology broadly has really actually sort of exploded over the last few years. So a few years ago it was maybe like 150 or so companies. Now it's well over 6,000. So the number of marketing technology companies is staggering. But Segment is pretty differentiated within that. So the vast majority of marketing technology companies are focused on a specific channel. So you might have a few thousand advertising technology companies, a few hundred analytics tools, a few hundred email marketing tools, a few hundred attribution tools, and so forth. But we are in this more infrastructural layer, where we're sort of the pipes that are actually getting the data to this flowering ecosystem of all these different marketing technology tools. So in that sense, we're very differentiated in being that infrastructure layer, and there's very few, if any, sort of other players there, and primarily we're competing with people who are sort of doing it the old-fashioned way of going and manually integrating the pipes to all these different tools.
So they are the pipes that supply the data to this ever-mushrooming cloud of marketing technology apps. What is it, 8,000, 9,000 at this stage? But they stay one layer below at the infrastructure layer, and that, it means they're the enabler, a very, very powerful place to be.
We call this category customer data infrastructure, and the reason we call it infrastructure is because it's targeted at developers, which then gets at why it's so easy to use. So I think some companies think about selling to SMB and small businesses, and some companies think about selling to the enterprise. When you sell to developers or through developers as sort of your primary channel, you often actually don't have to make as much of a choice, because developers are actually fairly similar across all different sizes of companies and what they want. They want very simple docs, they want a simple setup flow where they can get started, they want very well-built products and well-built SDKs for implementing and collecting the data. So they actually want a common set of things across all different sizes of companies. And they want that sort of common data infrastructure, if you will. So we've differentiated, I think, by approaching it from a developer perspective, partly because we were developers to begin with. But that gives us access to sort of the entirety of the market in a very efficient, sort of interesting way.
So developers, engineers, selling to them and through them is a massive trend at the moment in SaaS. And I find that remarkable. Anyone who's ever built a sales team will understand, or has worked in sales, will understand how remarkable it is. They sell with pretty much the same efficiency from day one to SMBs and to enterprise. Founded in 2012, they've raised $280 million at a valuation of 1.5 billion, and that's a while back. So they're actually well north of 2 billion, very probably, or even north of that. Okay, now, empowering mobile app providers. The vision of the next company is, their stated vision is supercharging your mobile growth. I think they have an even bigger vision than that. But anyway, apps deliver 300% more conversions than the mobile web, and 140% more engagement. So any entity that can help app providers to give a better app experience to their customers is going to be huge. So, meet Mike Molinet, who's doing a Superman pose there. He's the COO and co-founder of Branch.io. He talks about his struggles with 5 customer-facing apps before co-founding Branch.io, the last one called Kindred, how to get discovered and how to get traction in iOS, in the Google Play. Have a listen.
We realized almost immediately that as an app, entering an app store that now has 5 million apps across iOS and Android, and at the time had over 2 million, it's very, very hard to succeed as a new app or as a new company trying to compete against the big guys, because the big guys had a lot of the dominance. They knew the people at Apple and Google, they could get featured in their respective stores, they could spend a lot of money on advertising, and we found that as a newcomer, it was very hard to get discovered, it was very hard to actually win or compete against those companies. Versus on the web, we felt that the web was a little bit more democratized. You could have really good content that would end up getting indexed, and after it was indexed would be searchable or discoverable by end consumers, regardless of whether or not it was a big brand or a small brand. With native apps, it's not really the same. It's much harder to get yourself discovered. So that's when we started to build a lot of the things that ended turning into what Branch helps solve for other apps today, but things like referrals, things like sharing, content sharing, ways to help consumers discover apps as well as for the brand to make sure that the end users get a good experience and that they can track where their users are coming from.
So they walked in the shoes of their customers, people building consumer apps, companies launching consumer apps, sometimes huge companies. And they took those learnings, they solved a lot of them quite successfully, and then realized, hey, we can solve this for millions of app providers. So they co-founded Branch.io in 2014, and they've raised $330 million US, 125 million of that last month, at a post-money valuation of 1 to 10 billion. From consumer app to something like that. And I'll be introducing Matt Segete tomorrow, by the way, another co-founder from this company. The first person I interviewed on this podcast 2 years ago. So Matt is amazing, should be here tomorrow. Okay.
And so we stepped back one day and we realized that all the effort that we were putting into Kindred was really to solve broader problems that the entire ecosystem was facing, that every app out there was facing, that any company that cared about mobile was facing. And we realized that if we could solve that, if we could solve the measurement piece, the user experience piece, the user routing piece, people call that deep linking, we could solve something much bigger than just trying to do it for one app, because all the other apps were facing the same thing. So pretty much immediately after that, that's when we decided, let's start working on that. Let's give that a shot, because I think that has a bigger opportunity than just our consumer-facing app.
Okay, it's a massive company. I have a question for you. Hands up, how many people here have used Branch.io? Okay, almost no hands. There's somebody there. Okay, the truth is you've all used it. Okay, so if you've used Airbnb, if you use Yelp, Pinterest, Ticketmaster, Lyft, then that seamless experience you're getting is powered by links from these guys. Okay, they have 3 billion users on a monthly basis. That's 40% of the population of the planet. So I can tell you that all of you tech-enabled people here, you've all used Branch many, many, many times. And I believe they have a bigger vision than supercharging mobile growth. I believe their vision is to index, and they haven't said it to me, but I believe it's to index the mobile app ecosystem, which is a Google-esque vision, because mobile apps have up to recently been pretty hidden and pretty difficult to track compared to the web. So they're empowering mobile links, attribution, and measurement for all of those users. And if you don't think if you think that's a bit of an exaggeration, well, by 2018, they were already the power behind over 100 billion links. That's as many neurons as you have in your brain, as many galaxies as we have in the known universe. And that's a really big vision. Okay, the next vision is bringing quantum to the masses. Now, this is more of a moonshot, but a moonshot being taken by somebody who succeeded doing that before, and it's a less realized vision than the previous visions. But I don't know why people are not talking more about quantum. They're talking about crypto and blockchain. They should be talking about quantum, because potentially in the next 10 years, quantum will change computing more than computing has changed in its entire history. Okay? So, bringing quantum computing to the masses. Have a listen to this. So, this is William Hurley. That's me on the tour with him in Berlin, by the way. So he's sold his last 2 companies to Goldman Sachs and Accenture. He disrupted the finance industry, which he'd never been in just 2 years, for a massive exit in the last one. And he's an IBM master inventor, super, super clever guy. So he's building a layer between quantum computers and coders all over the world. And I'll tell you why that's important in a minute.
I think that requires focus on what I'm trying to do with the company, which is not build a quantum computer, and it's not win a Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics or anything like that. It's to provide a layer, a stable state for companies, creators, for innovators. And so if you have something as earth, shaking, world changing as quantum computing, then I want to be the catalyst where I can build a platform on top of which 1 million innovators who are the heroes can go do drug discovery or optimization or planetaries, whatever the case may be, right?
So quantum computers are stored at temperatures below that of outer space. They're incredibly expensive, and they can only be programmed by quantum physicists. Imagine how much that's slowing down the evolution of app development. He's building a layer, an interface to coders around the world to access all of these quantum computers via the cloud.
We are already becoming the dominant company in software in quantum, and this is going to change computers more in the next 10 years than they've changed in their entire existence. And so one of the things I wanted to do was build a platform that can integrate everyone's software and hardware. Like I said, more of an AWS, and then lower the barrier to entry, because now I become someone who can send customers to Zapata or OneQubit or D-Wave or IBM or Rigetti, a great resource for all of these companies. And that is potentially a very powerful position too, because what if you find yourself as kind of the gatekeeper of this stuff?
In short, his vision is to build a company that will be the AWS of quantum computing. The least realized of these visions, but the biggest of all.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please don't forget to share it with your network, subscribe to the series, and give the show a rating.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to 14 Minutes of SaaS.